Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for another edition of AFRAA Skyconnect Dialogue. In this discussion today, we are having somebody from the original equipment manufacturers, popularly called in the industry OEM, and he would be sharing some light on the job that OEMs do, how they interface with the industry, the support that they provide, and how they are helping to keep the aviation and particularly the aircrafts that we operate operating efficiently and productively for the industry. So my guest is a good friend of mine, Mr. Kaval Shah, and I'll give him a few minutes to introduce himself shortly. But before then, some housekeeping announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, as in previous sessions, please do note that you have the opportunity to participate in the discussion as it unfolds. So if you have a comment or a question, please use the chat box or the Q&A tab, and we would review your comments and questions as the discussions progress. At the end of, at some point in between the discussions, I would review your comments and questions and allow our guest to provide responses if need be. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on for this function for 1 hour, and for the next 1 hour, please sit back, relax, and participate in the discussion if you can. Otherwise, just absorb as much as you can through what information and knowledge that we will be sharing at this stage. So my guest, Mr. Kaval Shah, you're most welcome to AFRAA Skyconnect.
Thanks, Raphael. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be able to join the Skyconnect dialogue today. It's I think nice to see all the attendees.
Yeah, if you can just give us some brief introduction about yourself and the organization you work for.
So I am the regional sales manager for Pratt Whitney Canada, based in Johannesburg, South Africa. My regional responsibility is Sub-Saharan Africa. And in that role, I work closely with all the operators of Pratt Whitney Canada powered aircraft, be they regional aircraft, turboprops, helicopters, and business aviation platforms. And my responsibility is to support with aftermarket solutions and access to the OEM for all aspects of operations. I think one thing I can say from a primary... Sorry, go ahead, Rafael.
No, just go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I think the interesting thing for Pratt Whitney Canada, I mean, we power, I think, probably the largest fleet, if you could call it a fleet by far, across Africa when it comes to all those different platforms. So regional aircraft, turboprop aircraft, helicopters, and business aviation. And I think it's interesting in that aspect. Some of the aircraft that we power, I guess, perform the most important connectivity missions across the continent, linking cities, supporting remote communities.
Before we get into the discussions about your footprint in the aviation space in Africa, I just want, probably some of our guests are not too familiar with some of these industry terminologies. So I just want you to break down when they say OEM, original equipment manufacturer, what are we referring to? What type of business are we referring to, basically? In your case, in the case of Pratt & Whitney, what do you do?
Yeah, so as you said, OEM stands for original equipment manufacturer. That is a overall term to capture any organization that design, certify, and produce aircraft systems. So in our case, that would be the engines that power the aircraft. The OEMs additionally are also responsible for long-term technical support and lifecycle management of their products. And so in addition to the manufacturing, it's the technical support, the engineering design, etc. So that's what an OEM is, and that could be anything from the aircraft to different systems within the aircraft, from the engine all the way down to the tires.
So do we have some OEMs in Africa? Do we have African-owned OEMs, or they are not? We don't have African-owned OEMs.
There are a few OEMs in Africa that I am aware of. For example, in South Africa, there is Denel and Aerosuit. Oh, not Aerosuit anymore. It's Paramount. A few of those are most focused on maybe military aircraft. So there are a few OEMs, but not no. The majority of the OEMs, especially when it comes to the airline industry, are outside Africa.
Okay, okay, great. Now that put it in perspective, so it helps us to know. So you said you sell equipment, basically aircraft equipment and engines to manufacturers. Now, apart from that, what are the other services that you probably do? You mentioned technical support. Is that the only thing that you do? Provide the components and then provide technical support?
No, there's a bunch of additional services. I think the in terms of us as an OEM, so as an engine OEM, I can speak for ourselves. Technical support is obviously a critical piece. Our responsibility really comes into play once the aircraft enter into service. So in that aspect, there's technical support. There are maintenance programs, training solutions for engineers and technicians. We have field support managers within the region to support our customers. We also have other digital services like engine monitoring. We are also responsible as an OEM for supply chain and parts support, as well as mobile repair teams, so they can travel when customers need certain solutions or repair services on site. And of course, providing the knowledge on operational advice for best practice.
Okay, interesting. So now let's get back into the subject you were trying to expand on earlier about your footprint. So Pratt and Whitney, what is your support base like in Africa? In other words, how many aircrafts or airlines are you supporting?
So from a Pratt Whitney Canada perspective, it fluctuates, but we are probably supporting over 3,500 engines across Africa, with more than 700 or 800 operators. And our footprint is very diverse. As I mentioned, we've got our customers are the regional airlines that fly the regional aircraft, all the way to helicopters that fly for oil and gas missions, humanitarian missions, private transport, VIP transport, the general aviation industry that flies all the turboprop-powered aircraft on charters and medevacs, as well as some smaller airline missions, and then the business aviation aircraft as well that fly across the continent. So we are present in every country and territory across Africa in terms of our engines operating. In terms of a support footprint, we have a team of technicians located across the continent. So from field support managers who provide the technical support, we have 5 of them in the region. We have mobile repair technicians in East and Southern Africa. And then for commercial support, we have myself as a regional sales manager.
Now, so in terms of the market in Africa, how do you see the prospects, business prospects for your engines? You're currently supporting about 3,500 thereabout. Now, do you see this growing, or you think it will stay the same or probably even reduce? What are the prospects of the market going into the future, you think?
Yeah, I think it's I guess the one thing we all say is I think Africa is one of the most promising long-term aviation markets. I think that's widely recognized. Traffic is expected to grow. Um, and I think one of the elements that I think still remains quite under development and where a big opportunity is the regional connectivity. I think connectivity between African cities and African countries, I apologize, is underdeveloped, and I think there is an opportunity for growth there. And I think the turboprop and regional aircraft are critical, especially for those types of routes.
And that basically you focus more on supporting engines in the turboprop and regional aircraft range, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So if we're talking airlines, we're talking the ATR turboprop powered aircraft or the de Havilland, like the Q400s and the Dash 8s. And then, we also have airlines flying smaller turboprop aircraft, for example, in East Africa, for all the tourism markets there. So, the Caravans, the Twin Otters, etc. So that is our market. Yes.
Okay. So what is your expectations in terms of growth potential for your the type of engines you support?
So no, we're positive. We expect the market to continue to grow. One thing we know is that in Africa, the airlines, the operators are very utilize the aircraft. If you look at the hours that they fly, they fly more hours on average than I see elsewhere in the world. So African operators actually utilize the aircraft heavily and very well. And we see new deliveries certainly in our market on an ongoing basis. So we expect the market to continue to grow.
Okay. So now there's the Africa single African air transport market, and an initiative by the African Union to help us speed up the integration of the continent through connectivity, air connectivity. And there have been discussions ongoing. Significant progress has been made in terms of opening up the market. But like you rightly pointed out, we still have some gaps. We still have some areas that are not covered. I know this is not your area, selling of aircraft, but as somebody who has an interest in the growth of the market, do you see additional markets for the turboprops and regional aircraft on the African continent?
I think that the short answer is yes. Like I said, it's not my expertise or area of I don't have too much knowledge on that. So I'm aware of the activity. We support the activity because it's definitely good for the African market. We've seen the historical changes when the markets were deregulated in Europe and North America, and you see the growth in aviation. I think aviation is a critical tool, and especially in a continent where the road and rail infrastructure is perhaps not as present as it might be. Aviation really gives us that opportunity to connect communities, to grow economies, to provide opportunities for people to travel and work. So I think, yeah, we support that. I think it's critical and I'm glad that AFRAA is leading that initiative. It's definitely a good thing for the African market. It can only be positive.
Good. Excellent. In terms of support, do you have a working relationship with some of the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities on the continent?
So What Pratt& Whitney has a network of of its own overhaul facilities across the globe. They're strategically located, and we also have a network of designated overhaul facilities. So, in terms of Africa, we have two maintenance facilities on the continent. One is Pratt& Whitney Canada's own facility based in Kenya, with Pratt& Whitney technicians, and that supports the PT6A engines and the PW100 engines all the way up to hot section inspection and repair. And then we have a designated overhaul facility in South Africa under Standard Aero, and that is a fully capable overhaul facility based in Johannesburg for the PT6A engine models. So we do have a footprint in Africa for MRO.
Mm. And for the airlines that whose equipment you support, do you provide them with any capacity building? Do you develop their skills, their capability of handling for particularly minor issues instead of always deferring to you?
Correct. So I think that's the important piece, right? When it comes to engine maintenance starts first on the line. So when you get into service, and when it comes to line maintenance support and activity, we provide the manuals, access to tooling and training to all operators to be able to undertake the line maintenance activity that is needed. When it comes to the heavy maintenance activity, that is, I guess, that currently as it stands, it's done overseas. It's done outside Africa. And the reasons are, I'd say, structural, rather than anything to do with investment or will. Heavy engine MRO, it's highly technologically and capital intensive. It requires advanced tooling, test cells, certification, engineering expertise, and the economic viability depends on sufficient engine volume. So while we have 3,500 engines operating across Africa, we have over 200 different types of engine models. So it's an extremely diverse fleet, which spreads the demand across so many different airframes and engine models, which means the challenge isn't capability alone. The scale is not there yet in Africa for anything for the heavy maintenance side.
Oh, okay. Now I've just seen a quick question, which is actually aligned to what we're discussing now. And this
Okay.
question is from Dr. Elijah Chingosho, and he wants to know from you, do you collaborate with MROs for the Pratt & Whitney 100 series engines fitted on ATR 42s and ATR 72s in Africa, like ET and Air Algeria?
So we have different levels of support contracts with those operators and with various operators across the region. So we provide aftermarket solutions all the way from a time material solution to long-term engine maintenance programs. And that's the philosophy we adopt, especially with the airline operators. So we have engine maintenance programs in place with some of the key airlines across the region. And this is where the support comes from. So again, line maintenance, they handle. All the heavy maintenance we manage. I don't know if that helps answer the question.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, the airlines handle the line maintenance, but then when it then comes to heavy maintenance, then you take over and you sort that out for the airlines.
Yeah, correct. ET, of course, has their own MRO facility that we have supported for their engines based because of their fleet. So ET have a certain capability based on their scale.
Mm. So besides the airlines or operators of equipment that use your engines, do you have other partners, business-wise, on the continent? And who are these?
Well, I think we collaborate rather with various players across the industry. So what we try and do is our role and my role and Pratt Whitney Canada's role is, again, it's when the aircraft come into service. So how can we best support the operators of our equipment? And so we do collaborate with the aviation associations like AFRAA, AFBA, the Business Aviation Association, like the Commercial Aviation Association of Southern Africa. So various associations, we do partake and participate. We also work with the various and participate in the various conferences and shows, the premier conferences and shows across the region, like the MRO conference, the Air Forces Forum, Africa Aerospace and Defense, Aviation Africa. So we are present there, and we do hold regular events and customer days across the region as well in support of our customers.
Now, so in terms of the support to your customers, I just want to know, a few months back, we had issues with some level of support not forthcoming for some OEMs because they were operating equipment and they had challenges. Do you have certain challenges that impact your operations on the continent?
I think you're alluding to, I guess, the supply chain challenges that have affected, I'd say, the entire aviation ecosystem since COVID. I think the challenges are still there across the aviation ecosystem, including for ourselves. Parts availability is a challenge. There are logistics delays, and while we think things are turning around, other geopolitical events continue to occur and affect our ability to support. Turn times are definitely extended. What OEMs are doing, what we are doing, we're increasing parts inventory. We're expanding capability where it makes sense. We are investing significantly in what I would call supply chain resilience, to be able to manage, when we have moments of unpredictability or challenge in the industry. I think we're getting much better at predictive maintenance and forecasting. And then what we have been doing is expanding our field repair capability. That's something we focused on in the last few years with the Kenya facility. We now have 6 technicians based out of Africa, traveling all across the region supporting customers. So I think the focus is and I can say that the supply it has increased, but the demand is unprecedented as well. So it's just a challenge for the OEMs to keep up with that demand. And it's as I said before, improve resilience and minimize operational impact on airlines. I think there's a piece there where certainly we try and work better together with our operators to help them be aware of the challenges and be more proactive when it comes to their planning.
Yeah. And do you actually stock some engines on the continent? Or that is a role that has been left to the operators?
No, so if we do, and it's something we look at. The interesting challenge is that the demand is right now outstripping supply. So as I mentioned, we've come up with new programs. One of the things we do as Pratt & Whitney is we have engine exchange programs. So we build engines, freshly overhauled engines ready for exchange. We last year brought a new facility online in Poland to specialize in the PT6A engine and to build zero TSO engines for the exchange market. In fact, that is one of our biggest activities in Africa, where we are exchanging engines rather than the traditional overhaul and repair and overhaul solution. What we're not able to do, unfortunately, is keep up with the demand. So right now, as much as I would like to stock engines, I am actually selling engines before they're even complete. So what I encourage operators to do. I think the pre-COVID, we were at a time where we were, I think we were, what's the word? We were not lucky, but there was a not an oversupply, but there was a good supply, and you were able to, as an operator, look a few months down the line, contact the OEM for support, and the parts are available, or an engine is available, or an overhaul solution is available. That, unfortunately, is not the case anymore. And you need to be much more proactive in your planning. And I'm talking, next 6, 12, 18 months, you need to be talking to your OEMs about your needs and your planning and your forecasting and your demand so that you can get the service that you require to stay operational.
So now, the supply chain challenges are real, and going forward, what do you think Africa as a region should do to cushion itself? I mean, the operating the ecosystem in Africa to cushion itself against some of these external shocks. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the onus is exactly that. It's on the operators to make sure that they understand their risks, the challenges they face, and cushion themselves against that. From a Pratt & Whitney Canada perspective, I think it's important that rather than looking at short-term demands and solutions, they need to start thinking long-term. I mean, airlines are in the business for the long term. We should be looking at the maintenance programs that we offer, because under those maintenance programs, we are then working together to monitor the fleet, plan maintenance that's coming to you, support when engines are off wing for heavy maintenance. It's much more proactive. So I think the word needs to be proactively planning, and we offer solutions that way. And that's what I would encourage operators to look at.
Okay, and as we expect the numbers of your engines to grow on the continent, because stocking of these the extra engines is also a lot of money for many of the airlines. Do you think some sort of a pooling arrangement among the operators could actually help minimize the cost?
I think pooling is a great concept.
Yeah.
Pooling is a great concept. I think there are pools for spare parts certainly out there and solutions out there I'm aware of. Engine pooling, I think, is certainly something that might help with the capital investment, sharing that cost. But I guess it's the mechanics of a pooling solution and how it works and who pulls on it, right? Once an engine's out of the pool and on wing, and one of the other partners needs an engine, how do you manage that? So yes, I think it's a great idea, but it needs good dialogue and trust between the operators to be able to make it work.
Because AFRAA has always considered pooling, not just of engines, but of parts in general, just to sort of minimize the stockpiles that individual airlines have to do, because many of these airlines need the cash for their operations, but these are stuck in equipment that they just keep in there just in case something happens and you need it quickly. So and that again also ties in with a situation where oftentimes we see when you have an AOG, the support might not come in readily because the components have to come from further afield. In your case, depending on where you have your closest stock, you might just move it in quickly or it might delay. And this impacts airlines operations as well. So we just curious to know, is this something that, have you seen it somewhere that a group of airlines or an airline association sort of tries to come to develop a pooling solution that we can probably learn from?
I have heard of solutions. I'm not aware of the details. I think it's, like I was mentioned, it's a good idea. I think each operator needs to, needs to understand their business and the risk to their business. And as you mentioned, right, there's a capital investment in holding certain spares. But I think you have to balance that with the the cost for any AOG, right? So I think as an airline, as an operator, you have to do your own risk analysis based on your operation, your location, your routes, to understand that if we have and look at the reliability statistics of your fleet and maybe the historical events that you may have had and plan for those situations. And I guess you decide whether if you have a certain failure mode, you either have the spares and the technicians in place to fix that quickly, or you enter a pooling solution because you have time, or you look at the OEM solution, which takes a little bit of more time. So I think you've got to look at the criticality of it, the response time you need, and then based on that, as an operator plan. I guess that would be my generic answer. We're happy to work with
Now,
operators. Go ahead.
no, yeah, just finish on that point.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying, when operators are looking at fleets and growing their fleets, and I know, of course, they speak to the airframe OEMs when they're negotiating for aircraft, or the lessors, etc. What we on the engine side find is the airlines or the operators make a decision, get an airframe type, and then contact the engine manufacturer for support. At that point, or when they enter into service, I would say at that point it's too late, right? When you're in that phase of planning your fleet, you should already be engaged with the engine OEMs, because we have a view on the reliability of the engines. We can give advice on what to stock, or where to access what parts, what support is available, what spare engine recommendation, etc. So I would encourage operators with fleets to be engaged with their engine OEMs in advance of going into service.
So now let me go back to our questions again. I've just seen two questions have come in. We take those ones, and then we continue with our discussion. So the question is from, again, Elijah Chingosho, and he says, with a wide range of operations in Africa, how do you ensure that AOG spare support is timely?
So we at Pratt Whitney have a global fleet of over 68,000 engines flying, with over 15,000 operators. And one of an interesting statistic for Pratt Whitney Canada, 80% plus of our operators have two or less aircraft. So what we have is a lot of aircraft out there, a lot of operators out there. So we have a support network, starting with technical support from our field support managers of over 100 field support managers globally. So in Africa, we have 5. We also have a 24/7 customer first service desk. That is literally, it is 24/7, and it is managed and operated by engineers. So it's not a call center. It's engineers who are empowered to provide technical support, advice, troubleshooting support and advice, and also move parts if required. Now, our parts centers are located, and there isn't one in Africa, but we have parts centers in North America, Asia, and Europe. And we have an online portal where you can go and just check the parts availability and get that delivered. But additionally, then we also have mobile repair technicians based in Africa who are trained to support on wing, have the tooling and can mobilize parts quickly. So, I mean, Africa, we talk about Africa, but Africa is a big place. And moving, and it comes back to that challenge of moving parts from one part of Africa to another is just as hard as flying from one part of Africa to another, right? So the connectivity is key. And if we can get that connectivity, then we can be on site. But yes, if I'm going from Kenya to Uganda, that's easy. If I'm going from Kenya to West Africa, that's a bit more of a challenge. And it's the same when we're sending support. The challenge we have is, as I mentioned, we have over 200 different aircraft types present. So it's which parts do you stock? There isn't and that's the challenge we have. So we'd rather have centers, large centers at aviation hubs like in Amsterdam. That way parts can go anywhere in the world very quickly.
Okay. So now the next question is from Curtis. And Curtis says, does Pratt & Whitney plan to create or assist an OEM overhaul facilities in Africa?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, as I mentioned, we already have overhaul facilities in Africa. So we have the Standard Air overhaul facility located in South Africa. And then we have what we call our heavy maintenance facility in Nairobi. Standard Air also has a small facility in Nairobi. So actually, we have a good presence on the continent already. We are always looking, of course, at the fleet, how it's changing, what the demands are, and if the scale, if there is a critical mass and a proven business case, then yes, we would invest further. But at this stage, we are present, is what I can say.
Oh, okay. Now, so now you have a large customer base because of the limited fleet that most of them have. You say 80% have about 2 or less aircraft. So it means your customers are really, really a lot, and they cut across different parts of this world. Now, how do you keep touch with all of these operators, or it is their responsibility to keep touch with you because they will need your support, or it's mutual?
Yeah, no, it's I think actually that you've hit on something very important there, keeping in touch. I spend most of my time, and our team spends a lot of their time just trying to contact, engage with our customers, see if they need any support, etc. So we have, of course, our physical presence, so the field support managers being the primary regional contacts, our mobile repair technicians, etc. We also have various digital tools as well. So from our website, and there's a lot of information and resources on the website. And then we have the My Pratt & Whitney Canada portal. And the portal is a great place if you are an operator of Pratt & Whitney Canada products. It's the correct place to make sure you are registered. Your relevant employees have access to it. That's where you access the manuals, spare parts support, various other support. You can access the parts catalog. And then we also have various digital publications that you can access through our website or through the portal. So connecting with the customers is critical, and we try and be available to support. I think this industry is still, especially with engines and with the complexity of engines and operation, it's a relationship-based business. So for us, relationships are key.
So if I may just go back to the question of Curtis on supporting an operator with a maintenance facility. If assuming an MRO on the continent approach you and say, look, can you capacitate us to handle most of your maintenance works on the continent? Is this something that Pratt & Whitney will be happy to look at?
I think if there's a business case, absolutely yes. I think that is the bit, right? So it needs to be a practical and scalable. And
Mm,
if it's economically viable, then absolutely we would support that. The the
mm,
the 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 challenge at the moment is that based on the fleet in Africa, based on the global fleet, there is enough repair and overhaul capacity already existing. The challenge is not the capacity of repair and overhaul facility. It is more right now in the supply chain. And that of course is being worked on. So once that challenge is realized, the capacity is already there.
mm. Okay, so now we have another question from Elijah, which says that what is Pratt and Whitney's assessment of the skills levels to maintain your engines in Africa? Do you think it's adequate or inadequate?
I think, well, and again, I'm speaking from a perspective of Pratt& Whitney Canada. So I'm talking about the operators and the maintenance organizations that look after the aircraft that are powered by our engines. And I would say that actually African technicians and African expertise is very high. Um, if I look at, there are obviously centers of excellence, and I mean, I'll give the example, and that's why we're based in Kenya. I mean, you look at Nairobi, and you look at, for those who have been at Wilson Airport, um, if you have ever had the pleasure of going to Wilson Airport, that is one of the busiest airports in the world for Pratt& Whitney Canada engine movements. And there are multiple, and we're talking dozens, more than a dozen operators and maintenance providers there. So I think and I think that's replicated across Africa. So I think there is a good skill level across Africa. Can it be improved? Yes. I think, and it's something that a pipeline of technicians, I think, is something that is important for every aviation market across the continent to have. So I can't say anything bad about the African technicians and African engineers. I am positive.
So, and you think what we have is adequate, or,
No.
or
So
we?
adequate, I guess, and maybe you'll help me as well with this answer to that question because you probably have a more bigger perspective across. I think that
Yeah.
there is a demand for more aircraft, more pilots, more technicians, right? That's known. It's generally there isn't enough. So is it adequate? I think we need more people. Yes. I think I hear stories, and maybe you can tell me if you hear the same, Raphael. But the concept of
Mm,
is it brain drain, right? Our African technicians are being poached by operators and entities
mm,
outside Africa. So that's a good and a bad thing, right? It's good that we have the technicians
mm.
that can go out and do work out there, but then we have to fill the gaps.
Yeah. But we also are training a lot of young ones. You mentioned Kenya, and I know there are a lot of uh, training institutions in Kenya that are training a lot of technicians that are coming up. The challenge, though, always appear to be the opportunity for these guys after the training to get some hands-on experience that will bring them up to the level that operators would need. So how do we bridge that gap between the classroom training and then getting them access to attachment, internships, and whatever that they need so that they can gather their skills? In Nairobi, I've encountered a number of young guys who tell me he's finished, he's done engineering, he's done aircraft engineering, this type of engineering, but now they're looking for jobs. How do we deal with that?
I think that's not just an African challenge. I think it's everywhere. Uh, Again, as an engine OEM, it's a bit harder because our activity is more capital and parts intensive than labor intensive. I think the opportunities are certainly with aircraft maintenance, right? That is much more labor intensive, and that's where I think and I don't know, maybe it's through associations like yourselves, it's through technical partnerships, the AMOs and the training schools, it's through apprenticeships. I think that's the route. I mean, we have an apprentice in Kenya, and we're taking on another one, so we do our bit. But yeah, I think it, if you are training technicians, then you should be out there having partnerships with associations or the airlines or the maintenance organizations, so that there is a way to feed the workforce that you need, right? It's a good point, and maybe the system is not as connected as we think.
Hmm. Do you think OEMs have a role to play in helping us fix this? Because globally,
Yeah.
there's shortage.
No, so
Africa, fortunately, have
OEMs
the
absolutely
having
have a role,
yeah.
but
Go
the
ahead.
OEMs demand is, I mean, as I mentioned, the OEMs are not in Africa, right? So there's a challenge there already. So the OEMs, absolutely, we have programs in place. We have links with universities, we have links with technical colleges and training schools. We have apprentice programs. So it is very well established in the countries where the OEMs are established. And I think in Africa,
Hmm.
it's on the industry within Africa, then, if it's not OEMs, is it the operators, is it the maintenance providers, is it the repair facilities, etc., on them to also have those same systems in place.
Hmm.
And then,
Okay,
there's
interesting.
always the, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I
Go
was saying, and
ahead.
then
Go
there's
ahead.
always the piece of the government, right? So is there funding in place to support these activities and programs? Is aviation a priority?
Hmm. Yeah. So at least there's some thinking needs to get into actually getting these guys after school to get some hands-on experience. I mean, so that even as we lose some of the experienced ones, we have younger ones who are also experienced enough to be able to assume the functions that have been left by those who are leaving. I think it's important. But before we wind up, I want us to touch a bit about going forward. Environmental sustainable operations is critical for this industry. And the airline industry has set itself a 2050 net zero emission target. And a big chunk of that would depend on OEMs like yourselves. Can you just educate us from the engine manufacturer or production point of view? What are you guys doing to ensure that you give us more efficient, less carbon emitting engines?
Yeah, no, thanks. I think you're right. The area where we play is in the engines and the engine technology. I think
Mm,
as Pratt and Whitney Canada, we're well placed being with the turboprop powered regional aircraft, which are already 40% more fuel efficient than the equivalent jet. So I think turboprops already is a good move for fuel efficiency. We are, of course, continually investing in research and development into improving and designing new engine models for future aircraft that will be even more fuel efficient. Our engines have been already and are capable of flying the certified sustainable aviation fuels, and we are supporting any activities with respect to testing on 100% SAF fuels. So that piece is there. And then we're looking at future technologies as well. Currently, we have ongoing programs with hybrid electric solutions, as well as longer term research projects into hydrogen power. So there's a lot of ongoing activity in the
mm.
background in support of the whole industry. But I think the key
And
thing
and
is it's a collaborative effort across the ecosystem, right? It's not just OEMs, it's the operators, it's regulators, it's fuel producers, it's the whole industry.
yeah, indeed, it's actually it requires everybody within the aviation space to do their bit so that we can get this. But I'm asking you the question because engines are a component that uses what we call fossil fuels today, and so emit some CO2, and that's why I'm asking this question
Yeah.
to you as an OEM. But do you see prospects of hydrogen or solar engines coming into operation sooner?
When you say sooner, and this is now personal, I would say hydrogen technology is decades away. And I think the challenge is not on the engines, there's also a challenge on the infrastructure, right? And the delivery and the safety,
Yeah.
because hydrogen is a fuel, storage, etc. So there's different challenges. Um, Sustainable aviation fuel, there's a challenge of production and cost. I think the engines are capable to burn that right now. So we are ready. I think again, it's the infrastructure behind it and the supply that is more of a challenge. What's maybe more near term, not quite solar, but perhaps what we call hybrid electric. So we are looking at a solution where you have an electric motor as well as a gas turbine working together. Just like the car industry went hybrid first, there is a solution that might be hybrid, and it scales depending on the market and the size of aircraft that you're flying, from fully electric all the way to fully turbine. So I think there's a lot of activity going on across the industry and OEMs and research and development facilities in that. But are we close? Soon, I think we are still decades away, personally. I think the near-term solution is an operational efficiency, modernized fleets, sustainable aviation fuel use, and I guess carbon offset.
Mm, mm. Okay, let me check and see if there's a question else. There seems to be one more question. Yeah, what is new that we can expect from Pratt and Whitney going forward?
What is new?
Any new engine launches?
We are definitely working on some new platforms. We unfortunately can't disclose them, but yes, we're continually working on new platforms. Our last engine that, oh, not last, I'm saying, so it's a few years now, was the PT6E, which is the first fully electronic propeller controlled engine on the Pilatus PC-12 NGX. So we're talking, push button start. So it's fully electronic. But that's already, over 200 engines flown quite a few hours. So we're working on new platforms for the helicopters, for the regional market, and for the general aviation market. So definitely there is new technology there. We are continually looking at the reliability of our current fleets and improvement programs. When it comes to the regional airline fleet, the latest ATR aircraft is powered by the PW127XT, which is our latest generational regional aviation engine, which is, longer time on wing, lower maintenance costs, and more fuel efficient. So that is in service with at least two African airlines already, with more deliveries to come. So I'd say that is probably the newest when it comes to the airline aviation space. When it comes to support
Yeah,
programs,
any plans?
uh-huh.
Okay,
No,
go
I was just
ahead, go
saying,
ahead, go ahead.
support
Sorry.
programs is not new. but you know, there's room to work together and collaborate more to create solutions for the challenges customers are facing today. And so we're always willing to listen and see if we have a solution or can create a solution that will help with airlines that are operating at the moment.
No, thanks. Has Pratt and Whitney got any plans for wide body engines going
Again,
forward?
so I'm speaking for Pratt& Whitney
Do you have plans
Canada.
producing wide
I
body?
can't speak. I'm speaking as Pratt& Whitney Canada, of course not. Our remit is the turboprops and business jets and turboshafts, APUs as well. So I guess as Pratt& Whitney Canada, no. I can't speak for my sister or my brother company, Pratt& Whitney in the US. It would be out of place. It's not my expertise.
From Wilfred. Now, he's going back to our earlier discussion. He's looking at perspective on airline industry in Africa, the growth prospects and implications for OEMs. You know, we talked earlier about what your projections are with regards to the growth of traffic on the African continent and what it means for OEMs going forward. I think I'm not sure whether Wilfred was in then, but he's just raised the question. But I think this was actually responded to Wilfred, and I recall Kaval actually informed us that yes, they anticipate the growth, and in line with that, they are expecting to grow their the number of engines that they have on the continent significantly. You know, because the market is still not very well connected, and we would need these smaller jets and turboprops to actually improve connectivity on the African continent. Yeah, so I think that was handled. Let's don't go back there. So now, before we knock off, I just would want to give you a minute or two so that you can give us your final shot. What do you want to tell us from the OEM perspective as an aviation community?
No, thanks for the discussion. Hopefully, it was valuable to the listeners and the people joining. I think, as I mentioned at the start, I think well, or Africa definitely has enormous aviation growth potential. I am really proud to be representing my company and based in Africa and looking after our African customers. The whole team we have based in Africa are Africans, and we're really proud to support the operators here. I think going forward, the key thing is, and I think I used the word earlier, it's and considering where everything is and the challenges, I think we want to work with operators to build a resilient aviation or support and ecosystem, right? I think aviation is key to the economic growth and connectivity for Africa. And what my appeal is that, you know, work closer with the OEMs. OEMs invest a lot in terms of support, personnel, tools, networks. There's a lot of resources there. Pull on them and pull on them proactively. And then that way, you know, it's a better collaborative solution to operating successfully in Africa. So, you know, reach out to myself, to any of the team at Pratt& Whitney. We're there to support.
Great. Now, just before we knock off, I just see Wilfred has asked another question. He wants to know, which platform do you use to connect with other OEMs? Is there a platform that you use? How are you in touch with other OEMs?
No, No, I'm not aware of any particular platforms. I mean, we obviously are aware of each other and we have relationships. We, if we say platforms, maybe you mean MRO conferences, or events or training events. I guess we connect to there. But I'm not quite sure that there is any particular platform. The OEMs, are entities unto themselves. They don't, it's Yes, we collaborate maybe at an engineering level or between certain OEMs. But I'm not sure if there's anything else. Or maybe I misunderstood the question. I don't know what we mean by platform, maybe.
I interpreted it to mean probably some. Is there an electronic platform through which you get in touch with each other or something?
No, not that I'm
But
aware
but
of.
that's
Not that I'm aware of.
but that's fine. I'm sure we will get better clarity in probably our next time we have you online. So, Mr. Kaval Shah, thank you very much for your time and for enlightening us about the role of OEMs, in particular that of Pratt and Whitney. Thank you for being on the show today. And to my guests and those who particularly ask questions, we appreciate your participation all the time. Thank you for joining the show today, and we wish you a nice afternoon and a nice week ahead. Thank you and have a nice day, everyone. Bye bye.
You.